How are y'all doing today? I'm joined today by Supervisory Special Agent Terry Rawl from the Lakeland office of the FBI, as well as Special Agent Amy Pittman for this release of information. You know, we deal with a lot of horrific crimes at the sheriff's office, and you deal with a lot of horrific crimes where the victims are innocent children. But we've got one here where the victim was 9 years old when she was initially molested by our suspect, Rony Mendez. Rony Mendez was 22 when this abuse started. He had access to this child, and he began by molesting her. And then the child has admitted to at least 3 events where he sexually battered her. When she was first molested at 9 years old, she was only in 5th grade. And then at 10 years of age, he sexually battered her. And then another time, sometime about 10 or 11 years old, he sexually battered her again. And then there was a 4th event that we can document when she was 11, where he sexually battered her again, and this baby became pregnant. Well, being the man that Rony Mendez was, he received a phone call, and it's, oh my gosh, she's pregnant? He left work, told his boss, I need my check, I gotta go, I'll be back later. Grabbed his check and fled the country to Guatemala. When we say that we'll chase you to the ends of the earth in order to arrest you, please understand that's exactly what we did. With the assistance of the FBI, we were able to track Rony Mendez down to his family in Guatemala. I'm going to introduce Supervisory Special Agent Terry Rawl, who will give you some details. Because once we did the investigation, there was never any question of who the suspect was. Our detectives, in their usual professional manner, put a great case together, but there was one problem. We determined early on he fled the country, and we had to get him back here. He wasn't coming on his own. He had left, like the coward he is, the coward that sexually battered a 11-year-old child, impregnating her after he started grooming her and molesting her at only 9 years old. So we have a quandary. So we turn to our colleagues and our friends at the FBI to obtain a UFAP warrant, and I'll let our Supervisory Special Agent give you the details of what happened there, which we think are pretty interesting. And then ultimately we'll wrap up and take questions. When we arrived back with him, we'll discuss what he had to say after we hear from the FBI.
Thank you, Sheriff. Again, my name is Terry Rawl with Tampa Division FBI, and my supervisory responsibilities include our Lakeland resident agency, which is to cover our interests in Polk County, which is why we're here today. Let me just say, this is why we're here. This is why we have an office in Lakeland. This is why we operate in Polk County, to help our law enforcement partners out when they need help. In this case, they made a terrific investigation, got an arrest warrant for Mr. Mendez, and my job is simply to tell you, I'd like to perhaps provide you a little bit more detail about just the level of cooperation that's needed when we do these international fugitive extraditions. There's a lot of moving parts. There are no less than 6 different agencies involved with the extradition process. And Polk County Sheriff Office made the first move by getting the information that he was already back or headed towards Guatemala, and we knew about where his family had lived. Our first call, though, starts with a local U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Middle District of Florida, because we want that international jurisdiction, if you will, on the UFAP warrant, as the sheriff mentioned. It just is a UFAP, stands for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, exactly what Mr. Mendez did. Shortly after that, we contact our FBI attaché, which is known as the legal attaché in that part of the world, to see what we have on the ground there. In this case, we have Central America covered out of the country of El Salvador, but they have 3 other countries that they cover. One of them has a satellite office. We are lucky to find out that we have boots on the ground with the FBI in Guatemala City, Guatemala. So that helps because it means that we've been at work with these law enforcement agencies that we need to get the job done for a while, and that relationship was built. So the problem is it takes a long time, and even though the case was a terrific case by the sheriff's office and the state prosecutor's office here in Central Florida, that warrant is not valid for the Guatemalan authorities to make that arrest. We have to work with the Department of Justice's Office of International Affairs. I believe these agencies are listed in the press release that you got this morning or this afternoon. We have to work with them to ensure that the civil rights of their citizen are met, and then convert that facts and circumstances into a provisional arrest warrant, which does give Guatemalan authorities the right to make that arrest. But we wanted the police to know about what we were going to do right off the bat. We did. The process took quite a while. There's a dual citizenship test. There's certain, most crimes are extraditable, but some, it's not a complete list of all the crimes. So once the legal eagles did their job and we got the provisional arrest warrant, it did take until April of this year, of 2016. But the police, the national, I should say the Guatemala National Police, have a special unit in most Central American countries as well called the TAG teams. We call them TAG units, or TAG for transnational anti-gang units. We had been working with them on ground in Guatemala for quite a while. So they had done their homework. They had located the house, a small town in west central Guatemala. The problem wasn't quite as easy as they had hoped because there's no official address system in that part of the country. There are no numbers. And we were asking this TAG unit to go and locate this fugitive in a small town without alerting the neighbors, the family, let alone the fugitive himself. But they were so prepared that the very next day, that warrant was issued that gave them authority on April 20th. The very next day, the morning of April 21st, the TAG unit with Guatemala National Police hit the house for us. Mr. Mendez was arrested without incident, and then the long extradition process started. The sheriff and I were talking just prior to coming out here, and that may seem like a long time, the 4 months, but I can tell you that in the big picture of international extraditions, it is not. We have a lot of friendly countries we work with where it takes many more months than that to get the extradition finalized, up to 2 years, and so I was very happy with that as well. In talking with the league ad, I did ask, I said, look, we're going to be invited to a press release or a press conference. Is there anything you'd like me to say to the sheriff or to you all about how effective this was? Because I was proud of the effort. And he said, yes, one thing. Please let them know how long it took to develop that relationship with those TAG units. That is not something that existed 20 years ago. And he was very proud of the cooperative effort that exists between the FBI, boots on the ground, and the National Police of Guatemala, especially the TAG units. So then there's, there's a lot of working parts. The Guatemala Public Ministry has to work with our counterpart in DOJ to get that provisional arrest warrant. After the arrest, we're working with our folks at FBI headquarters. Somebody needed to pay to get these detectives and the special agent on board that plane and had to approve it. And of course, you had the Polk County Sheriff's Office, the FBI here and on the ground there. There's a lot of moving parts. To make this happen in 4 months from the time the arrest warrant was approved is rather quick in the big scheme. That's all I wanted to do today, is just to mention that level of cooperation that is needed. The Sheriff's Office and the FBI here in Polk County share a wonderful cooperative working relationship. We have 2 full-time participants from his office working every day with our joint, one soon will be on our Joint Terrorism Task Force and the other on the Safe Streets Task Force. We couldn't be happier about that. We know he doesn't have a lot of people to give the FBI to, so we're very appreciative of that as well, Sheriff. Thank you for your time.
You know what's interesting? He thought he could get away. They described this very remote area of Guatemala as a slope city. I presume on the side of a mountain. We have photographs of this very remote area. But this is a clear illustration that the sheriff's office, the FBI, law enforcement in this country will go to the ends of the earth to arrest you if you victimize children. And that's what happened. And I can tell you it happened with lightning speed dealing with international rules. We still have a guy in custody in Australia going on 4 years trying to get that guy back here. And by the way, he's on his way back too. He just lost his last federal appeal, but that'll be another press conference for another day. We look forward to having him here. But when you think about all of the moving parts and you think about sometimes the bureaucracy that gets tangled up in law enforcement, the beauty of this is remarkable. But you know, no one working on this case saw this as just another case. They investigated this case as if the victim were their baby girl, or their 9-year-old that were molested. And that's from us, the FBI here, and certainly the law enforcement agents in Guatemala as well. So, I got a message for Rony. You may not have air conditioning in Guatemala, but you don't have jail bars either. And you're here and you're locked up for a capital felony, and our goal is for you to be here in the States, in the prison, for the rest of your life. Share that with your buddies and tell them the American criminal justice system works really well for those who are victimized here. We're glad to have him in prison. He fled like a coward, and he came back in handcuffs. And when he arrived, we thought it was very nice of him to give us a confession. Although his confession was, you know, she stayed after me. She pursued me. You know, and finally I gave in to her advances. Are you kidding me? She's 9 years old, and this guy blames it on the little girl? What is wrong with him? Well, we know what's wrong with him. He's a child predator. He's a pedophile. He's a felon. And just for his information, that baby did not pursue him. He was the one that groomed her and started molesting her when she was only 9 years old. Any questions?
Yes, what was the nature of the relationship between, or can we have that information between the suspect and the little girl or the girl's mom?
Yeah, we can't release any kind of relationships that could tend to identify who our victim may be, but he had access to the child. You can't imagine the gravity of this case. I mean, you really can't. And at our absolute glee that we were able to send FBI agents and detectives down to Guatemala and retrieve him and bring him to justice. There's one last point I want to bring up. As part of the interview investigation process, we always ask the young child, can you write for us, if they're capable of writing, can you write for us what happened? Well, her fine motor skills had not developed to the point where she could handle a pencil. So she wrote about this horrible act with crayons. Now, on court day, we'll be able to present the horrific things that occurred to that child in her own handwriting with the child's crayons. Welcome to the United States criminal justice system, Mr. Mendez.
If you can tell us in any way, how is the victim doing? How is she holding up? State of mind, moving on after something like this?
The victim's doing very well. She had a beautiful child. The child is thriving and doing very well and is just over a year old right now.
Who's taking care of the child?
The family. But can you imagine? at 11 years old. She's got a baby. At 12, her baby's a year old. Can you imagine the responsibility that child and her family have because of this person that we still call a human being? There's no appropriate words that we can use with the media about what we think about his conduct that he displayed, unless you're Donald Trump. He might say it, or maybe the governor of Maine, but I won't. Take care. Anything else? See y'all later. Have a good day.